Hello and welcome to chapter 11, and this quick chapter is going to talk about communication when you're either looking for employment or when you have received an interview, things like resumes and cover letters and things of that nature. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to talk about how to plan employment communication, format, and organize a resume, how to choose a resume type and what the different types are, how to compose a resume, how to compose employment letters, so cover letter, resignation letter, and we're going to wrap up this lecture by talking about creating a web presence, so things like social media and how that can assist you in your job search. First, getting started on employment communication. Employment communication includes all of the following. So things like resumes, which summarize qualifications in 1 or 2 pages, cover letters, follow-up letters, which usually are post an interview, and finally resignation letters, which is going to announce your intention to resign. When you are thinking about the process of writing a resume, you're going to want to consider your strengths. So think about your education, what employment you have had, what accomplishments you have, even what skills that you have. And a lot of times we do include some character or personality traits such as organizational skills and things that would benefit you for a job. So the first thing you can do is research your prospective employer. So review the company's website, ask the human resource offices about hiring practices, talk to some former employees if you know some, and the best thing you can do is actually Google. So there are external web sources such as the Hoover's 500 profiles of the America's largest business enterprises, things like Glassdoor, but just know that when you do use external sources, I would take them with a grain of salt and just kind of use them as reference. Next thing you need to do is to choose your references. So your reference is going to be a person that knows you well enough that can speak to your character and your skills when doing a job. So before you list someone as a reference, make sure that you speak to them and ask them if that is okay with them. Typically, we choose 3 to 5 people who are going to feel comfortable making a positive statement about your work performance, give examples of what you've accomplished, and be able to answer specific questions from a potential employer regarding you and your character and your work ethic. Now, the employer's expectations of your resume is that it's going to be complete. It contains no errors. It's going to be neat and professional. It's going to be one of the typical organizational styles. And it is going to emphasize your best qualities. Even if it feels like bragging, that's okay. That's what this is for. So employers are going to look for people that have qualifying credentials, a good personality fit that will fit in with the current staff, that has career plans, and that those plans actually mesh well with the company goals. They're also going to look for education, experience, skills, work habits, and they're going to look for personal and professional integrity. Now, when you are putting your resume together, make your resume stand out. So, employers, they're only going to spend a couple seconds looking at your resume during the first screening. And during that first screening, it's going to be an immediate yes or an immediate maybe. So, make your resume stand out with good design features. So, things like symmetry and balance, white space, bold facing, underline. Use that formatting to your benefit. Use headings and make sure you use an easy to read font. Most of the time, serif is used for print and sans serif for online. Your 3 main resume headings are going to be an identification section, an education section, and work experience. Now, those are pretty much required sections, but there are optional sections that you can add as well. So you can add something like a job objective and a skill and ability. If you've had military service, volunteer experience, accomplishments, honors, awards, achievements, And finally, a summary of major qualifications. Sometimes this will actually add some good information to your resume that's not apparent in the required sections. Organizational strategies, there are two main ways, a priority order and a reverse chronological order. So, major sections are presented in a priority order from the most important to the least important. Some parts of the resume are presented in reverse chronological, so backwards through time. So typically this is your employment section, and you're going to put the most recent at the top and the one job that you had before or several years ago all the way at the bottom. Now, chronological resumes, this is going to provide a history of employment and education early in the resume. So you're going to be organizing all your information in reverse chronological order. So accounts of every year out of school with no gaps in time, emphasis on your dates. So the dates are going to be bolded, they're going to stand out using white space, and in the end, you're going to use predictable headings. Now, a functional resume, so it is more flexible, organized according to function or purpose. So you're going to summarize the most important qualifications. You may not account for every single year out of school. You are going to emphasize skills, accomplishments, and job titles regardless of when they were. So that by emphasis, again, you're going to use that formatting using bold and underline, things like that. In a functional resume, you usually have less predictable headings, and you may present your education and work experience later on in the resume, and it may not be first. So nowadays, resumes are primarily electronic, and electronic resumes can exist in several different forms. An email resume can be sent as an attachment to an email or a part of an email message. Typically, they're done in a PDF. An ASCII text resume, this again can be used as an attachment. A scannable resume is sent by mail or email to be scanned by an optical reader. Scannable resumes are typically used for those big websites that have a data dump of resumes where you would just search for keywords. Online resumes are posted to websites, and video resumes can be sent as a link, and they're more popular in things where you would perform. So performing arts, teaching, sales, something to show your skills through video that may not come across in text. Your word choices when using resumes are very important. So write multiple drafts and proof carefully so that there are no errors. It is common to have multiple types of resumes as well. So you may have one resume that emphasizes your technical background and say a second resume that emphasizes your teaching abilities. So that's okay. You can have multiple. Use as few words as possible. Fragments and lists with nouns and descriptive phrases and verbs and what. These are completely acceptable. So you may have a bulleted list that just states key club treasurer, knowledge of Windows and Macintosh environments, and install equipment. That is completely acceptable. Your resume is evidence of your skills. You want to make yourself look good. The proof comes in the specific quantifiable bits of information that you use on a resume. Resume is not meant to be wordy. Specific languages used on the resume can relate to the job, and make sure you focus on accomplishments and not necessarily job duties, unless they do overlap. Now, a resume can have a parallel structure and use the same type of heading for each entry. So it uses the same grammatical structure. For instance, all the elements of a previous job would be listed in the same order, and all verb endings should be consistent. So keeping it all the same, that helps your reader understand how to consume your resume in less amount of time. Now, we talked about those scannable resumes, and those scannable resumes, they rely on keywords. So they're going to look for specific, say, buzzwords in your resume to pull them out. So use several synonyms for one word to make sure you have all the keywords picked up. So, for example, hairstylist and cosmetologist. Yes, they mean the same thing, but if you have an employer looking for cosmetologist and you only used hairstylist, you're going to be excluded from that query. Also include more information in a scannable resume and be thorough. Now, one tip or trick that I can add to this is that for keywords, I like to use words that are in job postings because that's what they're looking for. So review job postings regularly and make sure that those buzzwords get added into your resume. So let's take a minute and talk about cover letters. Cover letters usually accompany your resume when submitting to a company. Now, a cover letter is going to let you sell yourself as the product or service, and it's going to include a couple different parts. So the first part is the opening, and that's where you're going to express interest in the job, how you heard about it, how your qualifications are going to set you apart from everyone else. That is going to then lead you into the qualification section. So you're going to describe in words your education, work experience, skills, abilities not mentioned on your resume. Finally, you're going to close with a request for an interview. You're going to refer to your resume, ask for an interview, and give your contact information. Typical cover letters do not exceed 1 page, so you don't want to get too wordy in these. Next, a follow-up letter. A follow-up letter is going to be sent immediately after a job interview. And what you're going to do is you're going to thank the employer for the interview. You're going to express continued interest in the job. You're going to remind that employer of why you belong in that position and maybe even something positive that happened in the interview. And finally, you can reassert your major qualifications for the job. On the other hand, a resignation letter. Resignation letters are done to maintain goodwill. You don't want to burn any bridges, and it is basically to get out of your job. So first thing you want to do is announce your intention to leave the company and state the last day that you will work. You are expected to give adequate notice. Sometimes notice is written within a contract, but I believe the rule of thumb is still 2 weeks notice. You do not have to explain to them why you're leaving or where you're going. You can do it if you would like, but honestly, it's not required. So a very simple resignation letter is, thank you so much for this opportunity at blank organization. I regret to inform you that I will be leaving the company on such and such a date, period, and your name. That's all that's really required. Now, you do want to keep the tone courteous and professional, so you can compliment your employer, compliment the company, thank the supervisor, offer to help prepare for your absence, and, close with something positive. You don't want to burn any bridges. Now, an e-portfolio. E-portfolios are websites, and this website is going to allow you to show off your accomplishments, reveal a little bit about your personality. They can give you a competitive edge. It's going to expose your credentials to multiple search engines. So again, this is going to help open those doors. Some content that you can have is about me, some writing samples, demonstrations of skills, work samples, photos. Your setup should possibly have a few things to keep it well organized. A table of contents, a context for the reason why each item is on your e-portfolio. Ask permission to use other photos or others' information. Avoid posting any personal information. The best way that you can be able to be contacted through an e-portfolio is by using a contact form, and that way you're not putting your personal email address or phone number out there on the internet. So social media sites can be powerful tools for job search and career development. And a lot of companies are going to use social media to recruit or do research on their potential employers. LinkedIn is the premier site for professionals. They have a job hunting service. There are jobs listed there continuously, and also for hiring purposes. Facebook and Twitter can complement your LinkedIn profile, but again, use them with care, especially if you don't know what you've posted on it previously. In order to use social media, make sure you consider the purpose of the site that you're on, the person that you want to present, what you want to look like, and the conventions that you can use. So plan your social media sites very carefully. Create a credible, authentic, marketable profile, connect with others, and get involved. So In conclusion, just make sure you don't have your middle school profile out there with some weird names and some pictures you would not want employers to see. As always, I'm available by email, and I will see you next lecture.